Every night at 3 a.m., your body intentionally floods itself with a stress hormone, not because anything is wrong, but because something in your biology decided this is when it should happen. In the same window, your brain physically shrinks and a waste removal system runs at 10 times its daytime speed to flush out the proteins that cause Alzheimer's. Scientists at the University of Michigan confirmed that your brain produces DMT, one of the most powerful psychedelics on Earth, and they believe it may be released during sleep, meaning every night around 3 a.m., your brain may be dosing itself with a hallucinogen. And every one of those systems, which evolved completely separately and run on completely different mechanisms, converges on the same hour. These are 10 things that happen at 3 a.m. that scientists still can't explain. The reason 3 a.m. feels worse than any other hour of the night. Around 3 a.m., your body begins what's called the morning cortisol surge, a biological pre-wake system designed to start preparing you for daylight about 4 to 6 hours before you actually need to be awake. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. It is what triggers fight or flight, and at 3 a.m., while you're presumably asleep, your body starts producing it intentionally. If something wakes you in this window, a sound, a dream, anything, you are now conscious with a brain that is already bathed in stress hormones. That panicked, chest tight, everything is catastrophic feeling you get at 3 a.m., that's not a reflection of reality. That is a hormone surge hitting a half-awake brain. What science cannot explain is why the process starts 3 to 4 hours early. Why not just before dawn? There's no identified reason for the timing gap, it just does this. Your core body temperature hits its single lowest recorded point of the entire day between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. This is confirmed by NIH research cited in medical textbooks and referred to as the physiological nadir. And it's definitely not subtle. Temperature drops roughly 1 to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit below your waking baseline. For context, that same drop during the day would warrant medical attention. In this window, your immune function is at its floor, your cardiovascular system is running at minimum capacity, and your blood pressure is at its lowest point. From a purely biological standpoint, the human body between 3 and 4 a.m. is operating as close to off as a living person can get while still being alive. I want you to know that I read that sentence back 3 times before deciding to put it in this script. That's where we are. In the 1980s, a scientist named Vic Tandy was working late in a supposedly haunted lab in Coventry, England. He felt deeply uneasy. He was sweating, he saw something move at the edge of his vision. He turned, but nothing was there. He was a scientist, so he investigated, and he found that a fan in the lab was emitting sound at 18.98 hertz, a frequency below the threshold of human hearing, called infrasound. What is specifically disturbing about 18.98 hertz is that it is the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. At that frequency, your eye vibrates in its socket, creating blurred peripheral vision your brain interprets as movement just out of sight. It also produces a pervasive sense of dread, the feeling of a presence in the room, and intense unease with no identifiable cause. What nobody has explained is why cities at 3 a.m., as ambient noise drops, become more hospitable to exactly these infrasound ranges. During the day, traffic and human activity mask it, but at night, when everything goes quiet, the frequency that makes you feel watched gets louder. This one goes somewhere I did not expect when I started researching it. The concept of 3 a.m. as the devil's hour didn't come from horror movies. It was deliberately codified in medieval Catholic canon law. The logic, 3 p.m. was designated as the hour of Christ's death. 3 a.m., the exact 12-hour inversion, was designated as its demonic counterpart. That's documented history. Here is where it becomes scientific. Researchers studying the nocebo effect, the documented phenomenon where belief in harm causes measurable physiological harm, have found that people informed about the witching hour before sleep report paranormal experiences at 3 a.m. at significantly higher rates than control groups, including non-religious participants. The church created a time that feels evil over 1,000 years ago, and it worked, and it is still working on people who have never even heard of canon law and couldn't tell you who designated it. I don't know, I guess the moral is don't let a medieval institution write your sleep schedule, I guess. For most adults sleeping between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m., the final and deepest REM cycle of the night begins between 3 and 4 a.m. REM sleep involves something called atonia, complete body paralysis that prevents you from physically acting out your dreams. Sleep paralysis occurs when your brain wakes up before the atonia lifts. You are fully conscious, but you cannot move, and your brain, still partially in REM, is hallucinating. CNN and the Sleep Foundation both document that 40% of sleep paralysis episodes involve hallucinations described as indistinguishable from waking perception: visual, auditory, and tactile, including the sensation of a physical presence in the room, something pressing on the chest, and figures standing near the bed. The reason the 3 to 4 a.m. window produces the most extreme and most frequent sleep paralysis episodes, specifically more severe than episodes earlier in the night, is not fully explained. The Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute has documented the 3 to 4 a.m. window as the most vulnerable period in the sleep cycle for mortality in compromised patients. Multiple peer-reviewed studies in the circadian rhythm literature confirm elevated death rates in this window, with the mechanism understood as a convergence: lowest body temperature, highest cortisol, minimum cardiovascular function, and deepest REM disruption all hitting simultaneously, creating conditions under which a compromised system is most likely to fail. What researchers cannot cleanly explain is why the distribution isn't smooth across the full low-function window of roughly 1 to 5 a.m. If the body is simply running at minimum capacity across those hours, deaths should spread relatively evenly across them, but instead they cluster. The 3 to 4 a.m. hour keeps appearing in the mortality data with a precision that isn't fully accounted for by the known physiological factors. In 2013, University of Rochester researchers published a finding that transformed neuroscience. During deep sleep, the brain physically shrinks and cerebrospinal fluid rushes through the expanded gaps to flush out waste, including amyloid beta and tau, the proteins that accumulate in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. They called it the glymphatic system, and they measured it as approximately 10 times more active during sleep than during waking hours. A 2026 human trial confirmed the mechanism is real. Follow-up research established that this cleaning runs most efficiently during the deepest sleep of the night, which for most adults falls in the 2 to 4 a.m. window. Here is what researchers cannot explain. Disrupting sleep specifically in this window appears to have an outsized impact on amyloid beta accumulation compared to disrupting sleep at other times of the night. If you chronically wake at 3 a.m. and stay awake for even 20 minutes, you may be repeatedly interrupting the exact phase responsible for flushing Alzheimer's-linked proteins, and they don't get cleared. I want to be very clear about what I'm about to say because it sounds invented, but it is not. In 2019, researchers at the University of Michigan Medicine confirmed that DMT exists in the living human brain. DMT is a Schedule I controlled substance. It is one of the most powerful hallucinogens ever documented. It is biosynthesized in the pineal gland, Multiple peer-reviewed studies published in academic journals and available on PubMed document that the pineal gland produces DMT and its release may follow a circadian rhythm. Researchers believe this release may occur during REM sleep. For most adults, the deepest REM of the night is around 3 a.m. The problem is the mechanism of release. The timing and the dose have not been confirmed. Your brain may be producing and releasing a psychedelic compound every night in the dark, specifically while you're most deeply asleep, and the scientists who confirmed it exists cannot tell you when, why, or how much. That is apparently where we are as a species. Multiple sleep research organizations, including published studies and data from sleep tracking platforms, have documented that 3 a.m. is the single most commonly reported time that people wake up unexpectedly in the night. More common than midnight, more common than 2 or 4 a.m. The cortisol surge and temperature nadir explain why the 2 to 4 a.m. window is generally disruptive for sleep, but what they do not explain is why 3 a.m. specifically, rather than 2:30 or 3:45 or a different distribution across the window, keeps appearing as the peak in the data. The cortisol surge is gradual, not a spike at exactly 3. Body temperature doesn't bottom out at a precise minute. Sleep architecture varies by individual and yet across different populations, different surveys, different hemispheres, and different studies conducted by organizations with no interest in the witching hour mythology, the same number keeps appearing. Something is happening at 3 a.m. specifically, and the mechanisms we've identified, as real and confirmed as they are, don't fully account for the precision of it. That is uncomfortable to me, and I feel like that should be uncomfortable to all of us. All right, guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I've been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I will see you again soon. Bye!